Hello, hello.
Hello, everyone.
Welcome back for another episode of DommeNation.
And this is the quarantine and chill version of our episode titled about safety.
Safety and consent. And we are your hosts, Ashley Page.
And I'm Mistress Marley.
We hope that y'all are keeping yourselves safe and sane in the midst of all of this madness wherever you are. You know, it's a crazy time right now, but we are bringing you back more goodness, more golden nuggets of information.
Yes, be sure to get your notebooks out for this episode too, because it's going to be a lot of information that you'll definitely need to write down. So let's jump into our kink story of the week. I know we have been quarantined inside, but I know we have some good stories. I know you definitely have some good stories. You always bring the heat, so let's hear it.
Well, so because things have been so chill, my kink story of the week is just gonna be related to everybody knows the concerns that we have, the safety measures that we need to take. Like we said, this episode is about safety and consent, so this is gonna be perfect. But I've been getting a lot of requests for real-time sessions, and as much as I would love to take out some of my frustration right now and bust some balls with some ass, just annihilate some folks, it is not safe to actually do so. It is not safe to session in real time. I have the luxury and the privilege of being able to turn down some of those sessions right now or push them online. So I've been having a lot of online sessions, which has been really good. But the lack of concern and the ignorance that people are either perpetuating or showing simply by trying to engage in real-time sessions while we're all in quarantine pandemic hysteria is mind-blowing to me.
It really is. I see it as your session is not worth my safety and my health.
Not at all.
It can wait.
It really can. And then also because we have so many different platforms online. There's content and stuff that I sell online. There's, I do things like night flirt and phone sex, and I do online sessions and all the things. So we can still engage in the way, but we just can't spend the time and risk, seeing one another in person. So there's ways to maneuver around the current state of affairs. Or, you can just pre-book and pay in advance for when all of this lifts and we can session in real time.
For real.
It can go either way. What about yours, Miss Marley?
So, actually, when you bring up online sessions, my kink story of the week is actually one that's just that's annoying pretty much. So I'll get, and we'll talk about this later in the video, but I'll get subs that will hit me up for sessions, and then when I ask for their ID to go through the vetting process, they just don't want to give me their ID. One guy one time, he just was very adamant on, well, other doms don't ask for my ID, so I'm not going to give it to you. And I'm just no. Whenever I'm going to have a session, that's the first thing I'm asking for, and if you don't want to give it to me in a way, it's definitely a red flag.
I'm really happy actually to be talking about this even at this time, because shit is real. Let's be honest, shit is real. Concerns about finances, and not just health but finances, and the way that we're going to continue maintaining our lifestyles in whatever sense. That's a big concern for a lot of people right now. So there is going to be a response from the negative side of the clientele that's going to try and push boundaries and disregard safety measures and everything that sex workers need to take. But then also we have made our boundaries so we can maintain safety and be able to walk away whole regardless. And it is imperative that we continue to do so, in a way that is sustainable.
What I can appreciate from this is I feel a lot of creativity is going to come out of this, of how to do online sessions, of how to do online content. Because one thing about sex workers, baby, we are creative.
Yo, and we ain't going nowhere.
We will find a way. This question is really, really good. It really relates to the topic we're talking about today. So the question is, when ball busting, do you start off using your full strength, or do you kind of just build it up?
So I feel like this goes with anything, regardless of the type of kink or the type of play or whatever. Even if this is a long time partner that you're doing this with or whatever, every day is different. So building up your intensity rather than going straight to that number 10 level, that creates a level of intimacy, a level of vulnerability, a level of trust, and it allows that scene and that exchange to build over time. Even if it's a 5-minute session or a 15-hour session or whatever, it allows that to be built over time, and then you can build toward a certain climactic point that makes everything that it puts it in this pivotal phase, rather than going to 110% where you can potentially injure someone, injure yourself, create a space that just it doesn't feel like a safe space to actually engage in, you know? So like for me personally, build up.
And I agree the same way. I feel like it's actually dangerous to assume that someone's pain level can immediately take you just going full throttle on their balls. Especially in an area that's very, very sensitive, especially in an area that could be injured very, very easily. Just to go into a session thinking, I'm just going to walk in and just go crazy on balls with my heel. You've just created a very unsafe session. You just created a very unsafe environment. And now you've probably gotten yourself into some shit that is hard to get out of.
When you conflate sex trafficking with sex work, that becomes a very dangerous situation. Sex trafficking means there is no consent, right? There is no consent, there is manipulation, there is coercion, there is violation of right on multiple levels, right? That is sex trafficking. Trafficking of any sort, whether it be domestic trafficking, labor trafficking, or whatever other type of trafficking, there is a lot of manipulation and coercion that is mixed in there, and that is not consensual, right? Versus sex work, it's consenting adults that have agreed to engage in adult services or adult entertainment or in this sex work industry, whether they are a cam girl or an escort or a streetwalker or a dominatrix, right? There is a level of consent and it is adults engaging in this activity. The level of coercion and manipulation is far less than what is happening in regards to sex trafficking. Don't get me wrong, there is a lot of gray area, but sex work revolves around consenting adults doing sexual based or sexual adjacent work. The thing with SESTA FOSTA is the fact that like basically a lot of government officials and a bunch of celebrities got together and pushed this image of what sex trafficking was to the public that doesn't really have a real understanding between the difference of the two. Right? And then also as like general society, there is this fucked up idea that sex workers and whores and things like that are separate from society or lower than society. And that is a falsity and a narrative that is very dangerous as well. But when you have a lot of confusion in the general public and you have people that seem official that are now using children, images of children, and saying that these are the victims that are being trafficked, this is what SESTA FOSTA is for, but really all of this is affecting sex workers that are not children, that are of consenting age, that are adults, that are doing work consensually, but you're putting them in the same bowl. Like basically everyone becomes harmed with this. So with SESTA FOSTA, there have been a lot of other acts and bills and laws that have been passed following it, where essentially websites and different things are being held accountable for the content that's being posted onto their website, right? So things like Backpage and Craigslist, right? Back in the day, those used to be major advertising, like sex work advertising bases. But now that has changed. Backpage is no longer there. Craigslist has gotten rid of its adult services, but even still, the same language and the same restrictions regarding freedom of speech, right, is being affected on these websites like Reddit and Facebook and FetLife and Instagram and Twitter. All the things all the things that like civilians once thought, oh, that'll only affect sex workers that are over there and are part of like lower class anyway. No, Susie Q in Alabama is being affected by the same shit because it is about censoring of language. It's about censoring of women's bodies. And so like it has had a very damaging after effect for all of us, whether you're a sex worker or not.
Yeah, it's really affected sex workers in very harmful ways, even to our livelihood, even to the point where certain payment processors won't even mess with us, or they won't even let us use their platform. They'll close accounts, they'll hold funds, they'll report you, they'll do so many different things, and it's to the point where, okay, now we can't pay so now it's to the point where you're messing with our money, we can't pay our bills to survive, and there's really no way with these websites to even kind of argue your case, because they won't even listen. Just like when Venmo personally shut down my profile, they weren't trying to hear anything I was trying to say when I tried to get it back. They were just like, well, that's it. So it's really harmful. So now that we've talked about SESTA FOSTA, what it is, and how to get through the loopholes of it, we are now going to talk about protecting your identity. Protecting your identity as a sex worker is very, very, very important. There's so many different ways you can protect your identity. There's so many different things you can do to make sure that, you know, your face is blurred out, you're using different email addresses, so many different things. So Ashley, what do you do personally to protect your identity online?
Well, first thing that you mentioned as far as like the email address, that is absolutely essential. Have have something that is completely separate from your government name. Also make sure that you're using your pseudonym or your working name when you put in the, in the contact field what your name is on these email addresses, when you're using them for different sites, if you're connecting with different social media platforms, always route them through that kind of account, right? So then you can establish yourself that way, and you just keep everything separate. Another thing that I do, I'll have a work phone number that is separate from my name. So if someone was ever to like reverse number search or do any kind of like background search on that phone number, my government name does not show up. It either comes up as, just a blank account, or it has my pseudonym, Ashley Page, on there. I highly recommend doing that. If you can't get a separate line, then Google Voice is your friend. There's also all kind of different apps that allow you to put like different numbers that you can have access to, where you can route people through and keep yourself separate that way. But a major thing, I highly recommend that if you have the ability to do so. I became an LLC several years ago, and so my bank account, my taxes, everything, I've actually paid my taxes. I make sure that my bank account and everywhere that I'm receiving money, it adds another layer of protection. So rather than people getting access to my real name, again, they can get access to my business, which is a consulting business. So that adds another layer of protection. I also highly recommend getting a virtual private network or a VPN. So then that way, whenever you're online, whether you're on your phone or you're logging in through a computer, you have something that allows you to reroute your IP address, because there's a lot of information that we often leak without knowing it. So that's even another layer of added protection. And then even things like encrypted email or encrypted messaging apps. So like Proton Mail is great. It offers end-to-end encryption for emails, as long as the other person is on Proton Mail as well. That's key. But then also there's things like Signal and Telegram, which offers end-to-end encryption, and their private messaging app. Beyond that is Kit, where you don't have to give a name or a phone number or an email for that matter. And that adds another layer of protection. So you can still communicate, still set up your sessions, still do whatever kind of kinky stuff or, sex work related stuff that you need to, but you always have that layer of protection, and you have that added benefit of added security with the privacy and the encryption available to there. Another big thing is I have been out for a long time, so I show my face. It's definitely part of my branding. This is my moneymaker right here, so I show that. Not everybody has the same level of privilege to do that. So like different app and Photoshop, if you want to blur or crop your photo or take photos artistically, so you're having something over your face or something that is blocking parts of your body, highly recommend that. If you're using different apps for photo blurring and things like that, make sure that you are, one, taking your metadata off as a default on your phone. It's a simple walkthrough process in your settings, so you can take the metadata out of your photos and no one can like hack your images and get your exact location. But then also you can use these apps and make sure that when you save your photo and you have the blur effect, make sure you save it, then do a screenshot, because there are certain sites like Eros, which is a major advertising site. Basically, they leaked a bunch of girls' photos that had no intention of ever showing their face online. So you want to make sure that you're giving yourself as much added layers of protection as you can. There's also a number of really great YouTube tutorials and different like walkthroughs and things, so you can learn how to do these apps properly, or simply know how to use Photoshop properly. So you can blur your face and hide different identity markers. I have a lot of tattoos, right? So like these are very clearly going to give me away if I was concerned about discretion. I've used things like full body makeup. I've had photographers edit out my tattoos. Even myself, I've edited them out in Photoshop. So if you have concerns about discretion, those are really strong things that I would highly recommend that you take into consideration and like get a tutorial on, so you can know how to do that for yourself.
So I myself, I have an LLC also, and I have it under like mentoring, like a mentorship type thing. Only because I run Black Dom sorority also, so it just goes hand in hand. I know like when you first sign up social media apps like Instagram and Twitter, if you're signing up on your phone, it like you see the option pops up and it says, do you want to sync your contacts? I always press no. I never want to sync the contacts in my phone, especially because there are a lot of vanilla folk in my phone. There are a lot of people in my phone that I don't want to know about this side of me. So that keeps them from not being able to get in contact with me. But I will say when it pops up, sometimes people skip over and don't realize what it's asking you pay attention to little pop-up boxes like that. You never know what you're agreeing to because it kind of like gets you. You might think, oh, we'll sync my contacts. Yeah, that sounds fine because it's on my phone. No, just don't do that. I definitely use different email addresses. I'm on Proton Mail too. I use apps like Google Voice, Text Free, Kik. I love Kik. A lot of sex workers actually use Kik. It's very popular. You know, I'm a little bit particular about my identity, but I'm also out also. But I'm really careful on certain things. Like even if I go out to a public place, I try not to put my location. You see a lot of people when they're out of the club or out of the bar, they'll like take videos and they'll tag where they're at. That's very dangerous, especially as a sex worker. You never want to do that. You want to keep that stuff off of your sex work profile.
And if you do choose to do it, right, make sure that you have already left that venue. That is absolutely essential because we all know marketing and this, that, and the other. It's great to tag the places that you're at, but make sure you're not actually there because that can be detrimental. And then going back where you had said keeping your phone and not syncing contacts, if you can have a different device that you are plugging in and logging into your social media, that would be ideal than having it on your default or your most used device where you have family and friends and civilian folks that should have nothing to do with your sex worker persona.
And I know what's also helped me with concealing my identity and my name is on PayPal, having a business account. So when I have the business account on PayPal, I can just do my LLC business. So even when clients send me money that way, it never shows, well, you sent money to, and then my real name. It never shows up as my real name. I will say the one thing with having a PayPal business account, they do take a percentage out of your funds. That's like the one con about it. But at the same time, your real name is being hidden and you're more so protected with a business account.
Keep in mind that PayPal is absolutely not sex worker friendly. So if you have a person that is sending you funds and they say something that's sex worker in the note, they can actually still block and hold your funds and block your account, close your account. So you have to be very particular about that. There's other sites that are more sex worker friendly that allow all kind of different payment processing for different types of sex work. So whether that's Indie Bill or CC Bill or SegPay, it would be great to like look up these kind of sites, look at their terms of service and start working with them because then you can collect your funds as a sex worker and it's perfectly fine. So that's another thing as well.
You have to look out for yourself in this community. Yes, it is a community, but you have to look out for yourself.
And keep in mind that like, even though the sex worker community is wonderful and phenomenal and extensive and there is something for someone, for everyone, keep in mind that like, because this is a marginalized community, it is an underground community in certain ways, it can attract certain manipulators and abusers and different folks that don't have your best interests in mind, and they could look just like you and be friendly as hell. But make sure that you're protecting yourself because like, only you can have your back, like honestly and truly. Make sure that you're using your pseudonym. Make sure that you are keeping yourself protected and not, you know, allowing too much access to your personal space until you've actually gotten to know this person. Even if it's a client or a sex worker, like protect yourself. But that's all of the stuff online, right? How do you protect your identity when you're in real time?
When it comes to protecting your identity or protecting yourself in real time, definitely the first step is to screen your clients. You need to screen your clients before you are meeting up with them because why would you want to meet up with someone that you don't like, right? So when it comes to screening, you can do so many different things. You can ask for ID, you can do reverse number lookup. There's some good apps such as Mr. Number where other doms or sex workers might rate the client based on their phone number. You can also ask for references, which is really good. I think Ashley has a lot to say about references because, you know, references can make or break this up. It can really decide, hey, I'm not going to meet with you because this reference says you are a shitty person, or hey, I'm going to meet with you because this reference said you are amazing, you know? So let's talk more about references.
Yeah, so references, honestly, it can be a double-edged sword, right? One, they can be phenomenal if they're coming from people that you know that have like a substantial following or have been around and like are legitimate and, you know, you can validate like who exactly they are, right? Or verify exactly who they are. There are two different schools of thought here. You can either take references, I do take them, but I make sure that one, if I'm screening the client, I'm also screening the person that they're sending me as a reference. Do they have a website? Do they have ads and different things? Are they an active provider? When was the last time they saw them? If it was, say for instance, the client saw them and it was 2 years ago, I'm not gonna take that reference. If it's within a year, I feel like that's a little safer. My typical default, I don't take references past 6 months because a lot can change in 6 months, you know? And then even going further with that, you wanna do your research on the person who is is that reference. Things like Verify Him is also great. This is a screening website, and also a blacklist site as well, where you can look up not only the client reference and do a reverse phone number check and email and all of this, right? You can also look and see a log of like who has made notes on this client, and you can also do the same for other sex workers, right? But the other school of thought is not accepting references whatsoever. Why is that? Because your experience may not actually reflect my experience. There are clients and submissives that will be good with one or two people so they can at least legitimize themselves, and then they turn into violent misogynistic assholes, or they show that they were always that in the first place. A number of years ago, this was a big thing with a website like Preferred 411, which is a screening site. It's all over the US. However, this was a specific incident in Oklahoma, Arkansas, and Texas, where they had cops that had infiltrated the board. And this has happened on a number of boards, but they had cops that had infiltrated the boards as tricks, and then they were being verified by other cops that were presenting as sex workers. So it was just like this cycle of fuckery, but everybody looked legitimate, and then they started busting people, right? So like, I understand why there are those that would choose to do references and those that wouldn't. It's all up to you. You have to pick and choose what makes you the most comfortable. Other things that I highly recommend, also getting their business card, having them email you from a completely like a vanilla account, having them email you from their work email to your vanilla account that's not linked to your sex work or your real name, so you can verify their work, and calling them, doing like employment verification, because then that adds another layer of security. Who wants to fuck around and mess up with someone that has their actual information, you know?
Exactly.
Those are key things, you know? So once you get all of your screening information, you verified everything, you've checked references, or you've checked their employment verification, or you've had them send a deposit, right, to show that they're serious about meeting with you, meet them and do a consult. Have a drink first. Maybe go to a munch. Go to a place where there will be other people, so you can, one, make sure and verify that this person is who they say they are, and also that you're comfortable in a space with them, and that you're willing to proceed further to an actual one-on-one session. But regardless of what step that you're in, or you're actually meeting them and they're going to your hotel, you're going to theirs, or they're coming to your dungeon, whatever, always make sure that you have a security call, a safety call in place, so that's someone that you know and love and trust, that you can let them know, hey, this is where I'm gonna be. I'm gonna be here for this long with this person. You don't necessarily have to give them all of the details about this about this person. However, make sure that they know how long you will be there, where you're going to be, and that you are going to check in when you get there and check out when your session is over. If you don't have the privilege of having someone that, you know, you feel comfortable enough with that, you can easily, you know, create a community where you can connect with people and connect with other sex workers, and you do shares that way, where you just constantly make sure that you're checking in with one another. You can hire security if you'd like, you know, you can, and security can be a friend, a boyfriend, a girlfriend, your mama, you know, like it can be anybody. Yeah, like it can be anybody that you trust to like be able to check in on you if anything happens.
Pages should be full. Pages should be full.
Yo, how to stay safe online, how to stay safe in real-time sessions. Now, what about staying safe like in an actual play session? What are things that you do to ensure safety, not only of yourself, but also of your client or your submissive?
Yeah, so when it comes to like safety within sessions while I'm playing and playing safe, I know that a lot of people practice aftercare, but I also like to practice something that I like to call before care, right? So as soon as you come into the space for session, I like to ask you, how are you feeling today? You know, a sub could have had an injury before, you could be in a different headspace, maybe they're not having such a good day, maybe they're having an excellent day. I want to know how they're feeling physically, mentally, and emotionally without crying too much. You never want to feel like you're crying too much or making them uncomfortable. And I also like to take notes of other things. I like to take notes of how my body, maybe something happened the day before, maybe I've had an injury from years back that just is flaring up today. Because especially when you're doing certain kinks and certain fetishes, you can feel that stuff. For instance, I broke my foot 2 years ago. So face sitting, I can't do that for too long. And I don't have negative sounding knees, so I cannot stay in that position for too long. Those are all things that I take into account while I'm doing it. And you know, you have to definitely take note of your body and also take a note of the sub's body. And that comes with so many different things. Make sure you have a safe word. Simple safe words within the kink community are the stoplight. Red, green, yellow. You can even do nonverbal cues. Say like, even if they're, and some people like to ask, well, how do I do nonverbal cues. If they have a gag, they can simply shake their head, up and down, anything that lets you know that, hey, I'm not feeling comfortable, or hey, you can keep going. What are some things you do, Ashley? Because I know this topic is very broad.
It really is. Going back to like the nonverbal cues, like just like with the red light system, right? You have red, yellow, green. Red is like a hard stop. The scene ends. You check in, and we do aftercare. We make sure that you're okay, right? Yellow is slow down. Maybe we need to adjust something, but we can keep on playing. For example, a red might be like, hey, my sciatica is flaring up and my entire left side is on fire. I need to stop right now, right? That can be a red, right? Versus like yellow, you have someone who's tied overhead, right? Their hands are over the head and their hands are going numb because, the blood is draining from their hands. That might just be a yellow, and all they need is simply a readjustment, and you can put them in a different position, but the scene can go on. You should do the same thing for nonverbal cues, where say for instance, you can see both hands, right? So like something like this, if they're just flashing like this, that could be their yellow. Be like, hey, check in real quick, right? Even though they're gagged or stuffed or whatever you're doing to them. And then if they're doing this constantly, this can be their red. This can mean stop. Find whatever system works for you, but also make sure it's a cue that you will see and will not miss simply because you're too wrapped up in the moment. That is essential. So additional things would include like if you're, depending on what kind of play that you're engaging in, right? You may need to incorporate dental dams, gloves, especially if you're having if you're doing any kind of like fluid exchange or anything where it's going to be mucous membrane to mucous membrane. So even if you're doing face sitting, right, whether it's covered or uncovered, keep in mind that the mouth is a mucous membrane, and you putting your genitals, even though they may be covered, ideally they're covered, at least for me anyway, they're covered, right? But keep in mind that if someone, say for instance, has any kind of STIs or STDs, you want to make sure that there is some kind of layer of protection. So they can wear a mask or a hood. You can wear your panties. You can, if you're doing things without coverings, make sure that you have a dental dam on that person. Make sure that like you're either, especially if you're going into anyone's orifices, right? Put some gloves on. The anus is not self-lubricating. So with long nails or short nails, you want to make sure that you're not honestly creating any kind of micro tears, because that creates a chance for a risk of bacterial infection and STIs and different things like that. So you want to make sure that you're protecting yourself in every way and protecting them as well. Also, if they're, say for instance, if you're wearing masks or they're wearing masks, make sure that you clean and sanitize. Soap and water is your friend, but that is not the only thing to do. Like if you're using any kind of like toys or anything that's going to be shared between multiple partners, you need to sanitize that. There's hospital grade cleaners like Cavicide, Citricide, alcohol is your friend, but you want to make sure that one, you're cleaning things properly, know how long to keep the cleaner and the solution on there so it actually disinfects it, right? So you need to read the back of that bottle. Also, making sure that you put condoms on toys, strap-ons and different things, wiping the area down, like that way you don't spread any kind of disease unintentionally. And then also, especially if you're using different types of equipment, make sure you know how to use that equipment.
So touching base on like knowing how to use equipment, especially when you're doing bondage, anything with like roll cuff, even if you're using ribbon, you want to make sure that you can get them out of it at the end of the day, right?
Yes,
so whether
and
that's
quickly.
You're doing a tie, whether you have like emergency pull that you might have, whether you have scissors, if you have to cut them up out of it, whether you have a knife, even when you have cuffs, make sure that you have 2 keys, at least 2 keys, because you never want to get in a situation where, hey, they're stuck here now and you don't know what to do.
Right.
So when you're using this equipment, just always make sure that you know how to get them out of it, because accidents can happen, but you never want to be the one that's panicking in your own session. You want to be like, hey, I can't get them out, boom, cut you out. All right, now we're going on to the next thing.
Right.
It's also good to have a first aid kit. Having a first aid kit isn't a problem, especially if you're going to a hotel. Bring a first aid kit with you. You do not want to go down to the lobby or have the client go down to the lobby, ask for a first aid kit, and they're like, no. Like that would be crazy.
Really don't want that.
Like who wants to break the middle of a session and have to run to the lobby in like your Domme clothing to try to have a first aid kit?
Right.
That's already
Also, don't you run down to that lobby in your Domme clothing. They're gonna kick you out. Don't you do it.
So yeah, guys, we touched on a lot of good things today concerning SESTA, FOSTA, how to keep yourself safe online, identity, how to keep yourself safe in sessions, how to screen people, how to get around SESTA, FOSTA, because we know that they're annoying as fuck, but how to get around it. So, like we said before, your notepad should be full of notes right now.
Y'all should have been working hard, like hand just going.
Okay, you should ready to start utilizing this stuff. It's going to change your outlook of how you look at things. things on social media now, all good things that will work for the benefit of you. So yeah, anything you want to add, Ashley? Because our next episode is going to be really, really good. But so
yeah, our next one is going to be really good. My biggest thing, honestly, is just like be intentional, but be aware about what you're doing and how you're moving around with all of this. Take some time to really figure out what works best for you and then incorporate these steps into your practice with your sex work so you can be as safe as possible and make sure that you get back to your real life whole, completely whole. But also, like, if you have other questions, right? If you would like us to discuss a few things a little bit more in depth, we're hungry for your questions. We're very interested in knowing what you guys and hearing what you guys want to hear from us. So be sure to email us at askdommenation@gmail.com. That's askdommenation@gmail.com. And perhaps your next question will be featured on our next episode. And then also we both do Ask Me Anythings on our Instagram and Twitter. So make sure that you are, communicating with us there, as we want to get you guys as much knowledge and information as possible and keep you safe and doing all of the pervy things in the process.
Yes, of course. So like she said, leave your questions. We will be picking the best ones. We'll be picking the most interesting ones. So leave us some interesting stuff. Don't ask for our phone numbers. Don't ask for stuff like that.
Because you ain't gonna get it.
Guys, please stay safe during this time with coronavirus, all the crazy stuff going on right now. Hopefully you can use these online tips and you can book some online sessions so you can still make that coin while you're stuck in the house.
Yes, ma'am.
But yes, this was an amazing episode of DommeNation. We cannot wait to see you on the next episode.